The worn leather of Marcus. Thompson's wallet felt thinner than usual as he counted the bills one last time. $50. That's all that stood between him and complete financial collapse. The rent was overdue, his 6-year-old daughter Emma needed new shoes, and his truck was running on fumes and prayers. But tonight, just tonight, he was going to pretend he was more than a struggling single father drowning in debt. Tonight, he was going to be the man Sarah deserved to see across a candlelit table. Marcus had met Sarah 3 weeks ago at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. He'd been there with Emma after a playground accident. Nothing serious, just a sprained ankle. But Sarah's warmth had stayed with him long after. Emma's tears had dried. She'd slipped him her number with a smile that made him forget, just for a moment, about the stack of unpaid bills on his kitchen counter. He'd almost canceled tonight a dozen times. What kind of man takes a woman to dinner when he can barely feed his own child? But Emma had insisted, her gap-toothed grin beaming up at him as she pushed him toward the door. "Daddy, you deserve to be happy too," she'd said with the wisdom of someone far beyond her years. His mother was watching Emma tonight, probably feeding her the spaghetti Marcus couldn't afford to make himself. The restaurant Sarah had suggested wasn't fancy by most standards. But to Marcus it might as well have been the Ritz. Antonio's was a cozy Italian place with checkered tablecloths and the kind of authentic smell that made your mouth water from the parking lot. He'd looked at the menu online. With careful ordering, he could make his $50 work. Barely. Sarah was already there when he arrived, and his breath caught. She wore a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, her dark hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She stood to greet him, and Marcus felt like the luckiest man alive, even if it was built on borrowed time. "You look beautiful," he said, meaning every word. "You clean up pretty well yourself," she teased, though Marcus was painfully aware that his one good shirt was fraying at the collar. They ordered modestly. Marcus insisted Sarah choose whatever she wanted while he selected the cheapest pasta on the menu. When she wasn't looking, he did the math in his head. $47 with tip. He'd have $3 to get through the rest of the week. It would be fine. It had to be fine. The conversation flowed easily. Sarah talked about her work, the patients she'd helped, the dreams she had of maybe opening a clinic for underserved communities someday. Marcus found himself sharing more than he'd planned. About Emma. About losing his wife to cancer 3 years ago. About the construction job he'd lost last month when the company went under. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly, setting down his fork. "I shouldn't be dumping all this on you. First date rule, keep it light, right?" Sarah reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "First date rule, be honest." "I like honest." That's when Marcus heard it, a commotion 2 tables away. An elderly man was standing, his face pale, one hand clutching his chest. His wife was crying out for help, her voice sharp with panic. Without thinking, Sarah was on her feet, her nurse training kicking in instantly. "Call 911, she shouted as she rushed to the man's side. Marcus grabbed his phone with shaking hands, relaying information to the dispatcher while Sarah began CPR. The restaurant had gone silent, except for Sarah's steady counting and the wife sobbing. Marcus knelt beside the elderly woman, taking her trembling hands in his. "What's his name?" he asked gently. "Robert," she whispered. "Robert Chen, we've been married 43 years, please." "Sarah's the best," Marcus assured her, though his own heart was hammering. "Just hold on." It felt like hours, but was probably only minutes before the paramedics arrived. They took over from Sarah, who stepped back, her hands still shaking from adrenaline. The elderly woman, Mrs. Chen, grabbed Sarah's hand before they wheeled her husband away. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you for saving him." The ambulance doors closed, sirens wailing into the night. The restaurant slowly came back to life, the manager rushing over to thank Sarah, offering them their meals on the house. But Marcus barely heard him. He was watching Sarah, this incredible woman who had just saved a man's life without a second thought, and he felt something shift in his chest. They finished their dinner in a daze, the earlier ease replaced by the weight of what had just happened. When the bill came, despite the manager's offer, Sarah had insisted on paying normally, not wanting to take advantage. Marcus pulled out his $50. "Let me get this," Sarah said, reaching for her purse. "Please," Marcus said, and something in his voice made her stop. "Let me do this. I want to." She smiled, and he left every dollar he had, including a generous tip for their waiter, who had remained calm throughout the emergency. They walked to the parking lot in comfortable silence. Marcus knew he should feel panicked about the empty wallet in his pocket, about the $3 bill he'd found in his truck's cup holder that was now his entire fortune. But standing next to Sarah under the streetlights, he mostly felt grateful. "Thank you for tonight," Sarah said. Even with the excitement, it was, "Marcus Thompson?" a voice called out across the parking lot. They turned to see a well-dressed man approaching, 50s maybe, with graying hair and an expensive suit. "I'm David Chen," he said, extending his hand. "I followed you from the restaurant. The man your date saved, Robert, that's my father." "Oh," Marcus said, shaking his hand. "Is he?" "They think he's going to be okay, thanks to her quick action." David looked at Sarah with genuine gratitude. The doctors said another minute could have made all the difference. "You saved his life." "I'm just glad I could help," Sarah said quietly. David reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "I own a construction company, Chen and Associates. I happened to overhear you mention you'd lost your job." He handed Marcus the card. "Come see me Monday morning. I can't let the partner of my father's guardian angel stay unemployed." Marcus stared at the card, unable to speak. "And you?" David turned to Sarah. "My mother wanted me to give you this." He handed her a sealed envelope. She insisted. Before either of them could respond, David was gone, rushing back to his car to return to the hospital. In the envelope was a check for $5,000 and a note in shaky handwriting. "For the woman who gave me more time with my husband. Use it to help others the way you helped us." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I can't accept this." "Maybe," Marcus said softly. "It's not about accepting. Maybe it's about paying it forward. Isn't that what you wanted? A clinic for people who can't afford care?" She looked at him, really looked at him, and Marcus saw his own wonder reflected back. "This is crazy," she whispered. "Yeah," he agreed, "but the good kind of crazy." That night, as Marcus drove home in his sputtering truck, David Chen had discreetly pressed $200 into his hand for gas and groceries. County thought about fate, about kindness, about the strange way the universe sometimes worked. He'd spent his last $50 trying to be someone he wasn't, only to discover that being exactly who he was, broke, honest and kind, was enough. Emma was asleep when he got home, but he kissed her forehead and whispered, "Daddy's going to be okay. We're going to be okay." On Monday, Marcus started his new job. The pay was better than his old position, and David Chen turned out to be the kind of boss who believed in second chances. Sarah used Mrs. Chen's gift as seed money for her clinic fund, and Marcus helped her plan it out over dozens of dates that followed. 6 months later, Marcus stood in that same parking lot at Antonio's, this time with Emma holding one hand and Sarah holding the other. Inside, they were meeting the Chens for dinner, a tradition that had started when Robert was released from the hospital and insisted on thanking Sarah properly. "Daddy," Emma tugged his sleeve. "Is Sarah going to be my mom now?" Marcus looked down at his daughter, then at Sarah, whose eyes had gone wide. He hadn't planned it like this, had a whole romantic proposal worked out for next month, but sometimes the best moments were the unplanned ones. "Well, Emma," he said, kneeling down, "I'd have to ask her first. What do you think? Should I?" Emma nodded enthusiastically, and Sarah was already crying, already nodding, already pulling them both into a hug that felt like coming home. Sometimes spending your last $50 was the best investment you could ever make, not because of what it bought, but because of where it led you, to the place where kindness met opportunity, where honesty met love, and where fate sat just 2 tables away, waiting to change everything.